Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. I am Pasta Jardula.
And I'm Fiorella.
And Jonny Sue is on the ones and twos. And it's been a long weekend without you, my fams. We needed you back. We're here.
We did.
It's been crazy. Things been heating up. A lot of things been going on. The candidate races are nuts. We've been all over the place. Hopefully you got a chance to take a look at some of our interviews with the DA's race. We also went to the endorsement meeting on Tuesday, or I believe it was. We showed a lot of this stuff you saw. We washed ourselves with sage. We are now clean. A priest says we're okay to go, so we're back with you, and now you will not be infected. I want to thank everybody who joined us on the Convo Couch YouTube over there. There are 24 people. Where you at? Like, share, subscribe. Remember, we're getting shadow banned. We're getting blacklisted. We took a look at some of the Googles and the searches, and a lot of our videos are tucked away, fam, and they're not there.
That's crazy.
Cullen, just how you doing, Cullen? We love you. People up on the Facebook, we love you guys too. So let's get started, fam, because we got a long show and there's a lot of things going on. This segment, I wanted you to have your genie hat on and your ooh with the ball when you predict the future, what's going on, because the Hill.
Oh, I was like, what?
No, I mean, in this business, there's always like, we're obviously, we're new to this business and we're working really hard at it and stuff. And there are areas it's hard when you want to say stuff, but when you're in the know and you see this, Fiorella is out there, I'm out there, we're all in these events, we're with these people, we hear whispers within the woods. So, fam, you heard a whisper about something, and the Hill wrote about that whisper 7 months later. Tell us about it.
So, 7 months ago, if you guys recall, I put up this tweet that was dealing with, shenanigans. And it said, leaked info from California Democratic Club shows that establishment Dems are using their data to unregister voters who recently switched to Democrat to vote for Sanders in 2016. And I said, this is how they rig it. Independents are voting for Tulsi and Bernie. Check your registration now. So we had these issues in 2016, which is why I pointed this out, because in 2016, we had the whole issues with the NPP, not non-party preference. Yes, California has semi-open primaries, but at the same time, you still have to get a specific ballot in order for your vote to count. You have to ask for it
in a certain way.
And you have to ask for the crossover ballot. People were instructed not to give you that unless you were asked. We had Greg Palast in here explaining that pretty well. And so when I heard this, and it was at an organizing meeting that we were having, and it was from trusted individuals that are in our movement here, and I put this out, people were like, you're a conspiracy theorist, we need proof, we need, they want the New York Times and they want these mainstream media sources to be the proof. And so now what we're seeing is that the Hill actually released The Hill released this article, and The Hill and others, because they're not the only ones, talking about how hundreds of California voters were being registered to the wrong party. And this is, of course, dealing with the whole DNV situation, because this is happening when it says the voters were reportedly had their party affiliation unexpectedly altered, and county officials are blaming the State Department of Motor Vehicles, the DNV. And this is according to the Sacramento Bee, that at least 600 people have seen the changes in several counties, including Sacramento, Santa Clara, and Shasta. And this issue is linked to the motor voter program, which automatically registers eligible voters when they go to the DMV. Okay, so now they're saying this is the DMV doing that. But we were hearing whispers of this before, and you can even go to the other article from the San Francisco Gate that pretty much also echoes this same exact thing.
What's the title say of this one?
This one talks about how computer glitch wiped out thousands of voters.
A glitch, fam.
Party preference. And so, yeah, a glitch. So here's the thing. I have a problem with glitches because that's always what they say. Like, that's their default. Like, even if there wasn't anything wrong, okay, it was a glitch, that can happen, sure. But what are the odds that these voters happen to be mainly independents and, people who are being unregistered from being a Democrat? Now, the good thing in California is that now we've gone from being able to register, having to register prior, to being able to register up to that day.
That's in Los Angeles, though, right?
I
don't think they can do it in Frisco.
But I think what's his name?
Can they do it in San Diego?
Gavin Newsom issued a statewide thing where people could register. That's what Right. But as we have more information, we will tell you guys more. But California obviously is a big deal when it comes to this upcoming election. We have the most delegates, etc. So a lot of people have, now started adjusting their sort of lens, being like, oh crap, maybe we need to check our registration. So people they checked their registration last night, and a couple of my friends went on there, and it's okay, and it basically showed that this is Don Irwin, I believe, that he said, I checked my vote registration on lavote.net, no record found. 1 month ago it was there, and I've registered thousands of people. So he's been one of those canvassing. I've seen him out there. Then there's also, I got this from Keith Anthony Sikora, voter registration verification. There are no matching records for your entered information. To reach again, call assistance. And then he informed me this morning at about like 8 a.m. that he had checked again and he was there again. So I don't really know what's happening, you guys. I really, but I don't trust Alex Padilla.
Yeah.
I don't trust the open source, because it's not open source, because we've asked numerous times
for the code,
and they've completely
here's my business card. Give me a call later. My name's Jeff Klein.
And you call them and they don't answer, and they don't call you back.
Yeah, you get that busy signal, that beep, beep, beep. And you talked about Alex Padilla. A guy who ran against him was named Ruben Major.
Right.
Ruben Major's running again for a different office. He's going to come on the show. But remember when he did a show with us, fam? He talked about it. He said the thing that is most bothersome to him was the fact that these registrations, something's wrong with them. Yeah. We talked about it several months ago. And when we did that show, my friend Bridget at work, she checked her registration and it was wrong.
Yeah.
I walked out. Remember one time when I switched my registration, I changed it to the American Independent, which is a Republican Party. I thought I was changing it to an independent when I told the young lady she changed it to the wrong one. So as I was walking out of the supermarket, a gentleman's like, well, yeah, I can change your registration. He just filled out the stuff. I got to change, no problem. I checked it 2 months later. He had to change to Democrat. So anybody can change this. So you see a Democratic club. You see somebody like Jane Albrecht, the one we went out with and everything like that. You see some people frustrated over there too as well. But within that club, she's going to understand who the Bernie people are, who the establishment people are. And if she wanted to, she could change those things. It's up to her, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And people's registrations will be changed. I'm not saying she did, but she could do that. And it's very easy for the leaders of these Democratic clubs to pinpoint the people who are going to vote for Bernie and the people who are not. Just like no Mickey Const, fam.
Right, exactly. And that's kind of, because just so you guys know, in a Democratic club, you endorse candidates, you endorse certain things. So they do know where you stand. And so a lot of the Bernie canvassers are doing is it's saying, they're kind of pinpointing to, you want to, like, they're pushing for people to register as a Democrat. They're kind of pushing, like the data to be there so they know what is going on. But that can only go so far. And I'm glad that they're doing that. But like I said, that can only go so far. But California is only one state. In Wisconsin, where this convention is set to be taking in a few months from now, they've also run into their own kind of shenanigans. So this Wisconsin judge ordered 234,000 voter registrations to be tossed. This is all because of people that may have moved and they're not sure of. But the problem is some of these people might be students. They might be students that are still voting at home. They might be, whatever. They might come back and they might have necessarily not be voting anyway. So why are you going to throw out all of them? This is affecting both Republicans and Democrats. This isn't a bipartisan issue. This is a bipartisan issue. This isn't just like, Democrats and Republicans. This is both. Yeah. And this is everybody.
If this is a situation, fam, where it's like a lot of Republicans doing their fugazi things, we've seen them around. Yeah. We're from Florida. We know the shit that can go on to disenfranchise people of color and their votes and stuff like that. But what leg do we have to stand on? On what moral leg does the Democrats have to stand on when they got their own fugaziness, when they might not go after you for being a person of color, but they'll go after you for political orientation?
Right.
And that's that, unjust is unjust. I know one thing might be worse than the other in people's minds, but if they want to discredit your vote, the elites discredit your vote one way or the other.
Exactly. And so Ashley Nicole, who's now living in Wisconsin, she said, so this may have happened to me even though I just moved here. I officially changed my voter registration to Wisconsin and even got my confirmation via snail mail, but I'm nowhere to be found when I search myself in the database here. And so she put that, and a lot of her friends have been talking about, hey, like, I can't find myself either. And of course, here is the receipts. Here we have, Johnny, where it says you are not registered to vote. you did not in the picture, you are not registered to vote, blah blah blah, they're unable to find you. So yeah,
right
there. Yeah. And so it's kind of a problem because I think in 2016 it was our first rodeo. A lot of people weren't sure of what was happening. It was kind of, we were caught off guard. This time we can't afford that. Like we really, it doesn't matter how many votes Bernie Sanders gets if the votes aren't counted.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons why I feel the Bernie campaign has failed here.
Yeah.
On when it comes to election integrity. And this is something that I have been pushing, and a lot of other burners have been pushing, and a lot of independents and Tulsi-crats have been pushing.
Yeah.
Because to me, this is if our vote doesn't count, it doesn't matter if you have everybody going in there and voting for Bernie Sanders. And the election integrity is an issue that Tulsi Gabbard has paid a lot of attention to, and thankfully, because nobody else is. And she's not only talking about, she included foreign interference, but she also included domestic interference, how we are interfering in our own elections. And I think it's important that we, as whoever progressive you're supporting, completely demand that if they're not doing anything about it, we have to be the watchdogs. We have to be the ones working at the polls. We have to be the ones making sure we're communicating with different states, especially right now with New Hampshire, Iowa, and Nevada, and then of course California, and eventually Wisconsin, where this whole convention is taking place. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm excited for that, but I'm also weary of how the establishment is prepping themselves for that convention.
Well, we say if they get it close, that's when they can cheat. If we make it overwhelming where they can't get it close, then we're going to power over it. However, we still got to be the keepers at the gate, and this is the point where our election, and this shit right here is what makes the Russian gate narrative even more hysterical. Mm-hmm. The fact that you want to tell us that somebody who put a rainbow Jesus Bernie up is really more convincing and is going to sway the election rather than the fugaziness the Democratic Party's been playing with the registrations for a while. I mean, we had Ruben Major on the show. I mean, it was a bad show. He was cutting up. Remember, he talked about it. He goes, it's the number one issue. Yeah. The registration is an issue, and we're going to have to, as progressives, we're going to have to be at the gate and fight for it. And this is also an area where I think a lot of people who have kind of turned away from Bernie Sanders or on the outside, this particular reason right here really upsets them more than anything. You know what I'm saying? They like what Tulsi did when she got up and walked away. They feel that Bernie should have done the same thing because they cheated him. So it's something we're going to have to pay very, very close attention to. And let me tell you something. Somebody put this on this chat over here. I smell a rat too, fam. Alex Padillo running this shit. Once again, we haven't been able to pinpoint it exactly, but we've been out there, right, Johnny? We can smell the rato. It's out there, and we have to be watching. Everybody be ready election time. And that's the thing now is I think the fact that they've made it 2 weeks, they made it harder for us to watch it now every day. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But we got to get out there. We got to participate. We got to volunteer. Just get your cameras ready. I think there's an app out there they're using in Florida. We should look into it. Mm-hmm. Jen Perlson talked about it. We got to be the keepers at the gate.
Perlman.
Yeah, Perlman. I'm sorry. Perlman, Jenny P. We have to get out there. So I think we should keep more eyes on this. Great call back then, fam. That's what you get when you have a show and you're connected to the grassroots like this girl is. A lot of great information. Super chat, or you want to finish up the subject?
Go ahead.
Ren Sten, thank you for the super chat contribution, as it is always appreciated on the couch. Sorry, my bad. It is always appreciated on the couch. Okay, it's suspect that glitches always favor the establishment.
Right. Right.
That is so true.
I wish the glitch would favor us for once, right?
We had a bad glitch,
doesn't happen.
And Bernie Sanders is president.
Yeah, right.
Thank you so much, everybody who was over there, too, on the Facebook. Steve Wilbrandt, Rocky B, we love you. Yeah. Thank you guys for hanging on out with us. So, fam, what's next now?
Okay, so what...
boy. Let's talk about your boy.
Okay, so what everyone is getting wrong about the Bernie Cenk endorsement issue, okay? And just let's go over this because everybody's kind of talked about it, and I just kind of want to give a more nuanced take on this because I feel like it's not nuanced thus far. So initially, Cenk said thank you to Bernie because Bernie endorsed him, and we can scroll on this Twitter feed and see pretty much that he quoted Bernie, I'm endorsing Cenk because I know he will serve ordinary people, not powerful special interests. He is a voice that we are desperately in need of Congress and will be a great representative in California. CA 25 and the country. Okay, great. And then he goes on and talks about how great Cenk is and blah, blah, blah. Okay. And so then Cenk, of course, thereafter, there was a situation that happened where there was a retraction, right? And Bernie Sanders rescinded his endorsement, and Cenk kind of made it seem like he was the one that did it first. And I'm going to tell you that that's not the case. But he said, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the endorsements of Bernie Sanders, Ro Khanna, Nina Turner, and local progressive groups that gave me their support. Their stance took real courage in the face of the corporate media and the Democratic establishment onslaught. And so then he goes on to say, I want to be free of any influence other than my voters of CA25. And so then he says he's not going to take any more endorsements, et cetera, et cetera. So he's saying, hey, I'm not going to take an endorsement, so I'm going to rescind my endorsement from Bernie Sanders. And so then this is what Bernie says. And he goes on to say, let me grab it really quickly. He goes on to say,
right below it, yeah. Cenk
Uygur has been a longtime fighter against corruption. However, our movement is bigger than any one person. I hear my supporters who were frustrated understand their concerns. Cenk today said he is rejecting all endorsements for his campaign and retract my endorsement. So a lot of people had a problem with this tweet. This tweet is kind of cringe, and I agree with that. How do you feel about Bernie's retraction?
Well, we know this right away that this was an opportunity. Bernie's campaign definitely, I mean, my personal opinion, I'm sure you're going to speak more about it. Bernie's campaign said, listen, we have to rescind the endorsement. You want to get out in front of it, we'll give you the opportunity. Go ahead and do so. But we're going to do that. And that's what they did. There was definitely a collaboration when it came to this situation and stuff. Yeah. And the criticism that, some people have made against Bernie for flip-flopping on the situation, I understand it. I don't think he should have endorsed him in the first place. That's my personal opinion. And therein lies the problem with the Bernie Sanders campaign. Sometimes they're very reactionary and they have to walk it back. And some of the stuff they've done along this whole primary, I think sometimes comes into question, like, why did you do that? Like, who the hell is advising Bernie Sanders? Like, who's giving him this information? So I think that was a bad thing. Now, when it comes to Cenk and when it comes to Bernie, the other day people were going after Bernie as far as like some of his foreign policies. And I said, listen, I will always have a spot in my heart for Bernie Sanders, and I played the Matt Orfalea video, the Beast Mode one, because he's the one who started this gangster stuff, right? He's the one who got us out there. So maybe he isn't as good on the issues when it comes to the issues that are most important to me as Tulsi Gabbard is, but I still have love for Bernie Sanders and whatnot. I kind of have that for Cenk in a way, except for Cenk committing the ultimate sin, which we're going to talk about. TYT started this stuff. Remember, they were the only ones out there. We had to go look for them. We had to look at Anna. We had to look. Emma started coming into play. Jordan before all of his bullshit nonsense.
They were doing great work. They were out there. What was it?
The 2015, 2016.
Standing Rock.
They were covering stuff like they're doing. It's kind of funny because I put this up the other day. They're doing the work they used to do. Now we're doing, like, we're taking place. Like, I'm looking around at the KDM convention. I don't see them. I'm looking around at the DA freaking debate. I don't see them. So they have gone a different way. So even though I have somewhat love and respect for Cenk, the fact that he took that friggin' money is the ultimate sin. So when he talks about, oh, now corporate PAC money, this and that, but what about the money you took for your own friggin' business?
Right.
So no matter what, I don't think Bernie should have endorsed me because who he took the money from. That was his whole story. Cenk didn't sell out. He didn't take the MSNBC contract. He went and did his own thing. But there's been a lot of talk about this from the get-go, fam. From that get-go, that he's an opportunist.
Right. So, well, the more corrupt California establishment and centrists are manipulating identity politics to smear Cenk, and that's very real. Bernie should have never endorsed him because of the baggage and the current fair criticisms that both neoliberals and progressives have of him. So TYT, as Pasta mentioned, took money from Katzenberg, $20 million. When they did that, and as soon as they did that, their reporting changed. And we noticed it because I was an avid TYT watcher. They started promoting Russiagate. This is another thing that I could not forgive Cenk. And he just went on Jimmy Dore, and he's Jimmy's title of his show says Cenk has a new theory, but it's pretty much the same theory. He's still pushing that Donald Trump is a puppet of Putin.
Yeah.
And that's just not simply the case, okay? They also were promoting Warren, and he only endorsed Sanders right before he announced his run, which I saw as opportunistic. Then, of course, there are current work-related issues that other people have put on Twitter, ex-TYT people that had contracts and left or were working with them and left. And there's also, of course, this is a big one for a lot of Tulsi supporters, been a bias against Tulsi Gabbard from his team, and also, of course, specifically from Cenk, but more so than him from his team, because I honestly saw him be more fair to her than both Anna and Emma were, and that's something that I will give him credit for.
But that could be scripted. That could be like, you play the good cop, I'll play the bad cop.
Exactly. He's the boss.
Well, is he the boss?
Well, he was.
I mean, how much power does Anna have when it comes to that situation?
Well, that wasn't your thing, right? Now she has.
Now she's But before then, I always thought she had a thing, a thing to say. You know what I'm saying? It's like kind of like what we do here. We're a team, right? We talk things through. There's not one person stronger than the other. I thought that was what was going on at TYT. However, the whole Tulsi kind of thing, good cop, bad cop, seemed very friggin' scripted in a way. I can't prove that whatsoever. But all of a sudden, they turn, Anna and Emma, who once said, it's like Joy Reid. They used to talk about Bernie being the most progressive. Now, then all of a sudden you get the contract. Bernie's not the most progressive.
Warren's more progressive.
Right.
Wow.
It's all about the money and who's your boss, who owns you. And so
yes, exactly.
This shows that Bernie's campaign, though, mishandled the situation and the fracturing of the staff, because some of them were obviously pro Bernie and some of them are obviously not. And there's a tweet by one of the grassroots, the director of the grassroots here in California, Melissa Byrne, it's a year-old tweet from 2018 where she talks about how Cenk is a sexist and blah, blah, blah. This is someone from Bernie's campaign. Simultaneously, there is Nina Turner and Ro Khanna saying, Cenk, you did well, blah, 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 etc. So there's obvious disagreements within the campaign, and that has been very, very clear. It also shows that Sanders did listen to progressive critiques, because he didn't just do it based on the accusations of sexism and blah, 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 and the racism, but it was also progressives that were very loud about their standing against Cenk as a progressive leader, because even though he is the most progressive in that race, because that woman Christy Smith is awful, they didn't really feel comfortable with him endorsing him. Now, some of the campaign did let themselves get influenced by the smears, clearly, but this wasn't an all or nothing situation. This was a very complex situation. So I agree with Pasta. He should have never endorsed anybody in that first place. And a source told me, close to the campaign, told me that Cenk was the first to rescind, that the campaign reached out to Cenk. It wasn't like Cenk did this and then the campaign. What Pastas said was true. Cenk came out and said this after he was contacted by the campaign. Of course, this is a whole PR move and we get it and this happens, but it was just the way it was handled. I agree with everybody that it was done in a very bad way. It made Bernie look weak, and he's not, and this isn't Bernie, this is the campaign, and I want to make sure to say that, because this isn't the guy is running around doing town halls. I don't know if you saw him yesterday. He was live every other hour. He was live all day, and again, I just feel like he's going back to that very heavy schedule, and now he's coming to California and AOC's coming, and all of this is high intensity, high gear until we get to the first primaries, and then California, which is California is it. It's it.
It's it.
And
so important. It's so important.
So this was, in the long run, if this isn't dealt with within the campaign, if they don't get their act together, it is going to hurt Bernie in the long run. And I think, he can only do so much. He has to rely on the people around him. And I thought that was just a really bad call. I'm not a fan of Cenk, but I feel like the way they handled it, it just was a bad handling.
This has been a common, denominator too, as well. It's been happening a lot of times. What the hell is the freaking campaign doing? Mm-hmm. What the hell is the campaign doing? And I think it's important we judge people for where they are today, not to where they once were. And I kind of felt like Bernie Sanders was still kind of holding on to what Cenk once was, when he was the pioneer, when he was the breakthrough, when he was the only network that was supporting him and supporting him only. Not to say that they aren't supporting him, but once again, they've changed. And you have to judge them by what they are and what they're doing now. And they are doing some of the most gross smears on Tulsi Gabbard, especially Anna, especially Emma, and it mirrors almost what happened to Bernie Sanders in 2015, 2016. And you have to recognize that. So the best thing to do is like, all right, listen, we're going to stay away from this and we're not going to endorse.
And that should have
anybody
been the action from the start. And
Exactly.
it would have avoided all of this situation.
No doubt. And I know damn well if you were running that fucking campaign, you would have said that same thing and be able to sell it in that room. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you guys like Cenk. I know you do. I know. But guess what? We have to stay away from this. This is a cancer pill we don't want to swallow. And now, I mean, worst comes to worst, and it happened. You make yourself look indecisive and stupid for the 1 foot in, the 1 foot out. We already had the leftover sent from Matt Orfalea, where a lot of people were like, dude, like, why are you doing this to Matt Orfalea? Yeah, he did something stupid. Number one, how come nobody found that out before you friggin' endorsed him and hired him, or just hired him? And secondly, if it was something he did at 19 years old, you can't forgive him for that and move on? So I
mean, I get it, especially, of course, when there are centrist kind of takes in the campaign that are paying attention to a lot of this optics is what I would say. You as a politician, you have to look at optics. It's something that you just have to always look at. And obviously, people weren't in agreement, and then it went that way. But again, I want to say that this isn't Bernie's fault. This is the team kind of mishandling the situation, and I just feel like it could be better handled. I think there are valid criticisms of Cenk Uygur, but I feel like the way this was taken was just not the best way. So that's
I hope he fires these people after the primary. If he wins the primary and he's not cheated, he will win the primary if he's not cheated. And I hope he fires them, really, because he needs to. Once again, he's on the wrong track when it comes to these things. I keep bringing up the whole Kashmir situation. Once again, whether you pick a side or not, that's not the way you handle it. He should have been pressing for both sides to sit down and work this thing out, not just choose one side, especially in an area where you're not even talking about, you don't have a lot of knowledge in it. It's obvious, but the way you handle these things politically, you got to handle them right. And the campaign has put him in his foot in hot water too many times, Fan. Fayez, Matt Dust, these guys, I don't like these guys at all. I wish he would shake these guys because they are not good for Bernie. And if they do another screw up like this, it might cost them even more.
Absolutely.
Stop looking indecisive. That was one of the things why Jeremy Corbyn didn't get elected this weekend, and we'll talk about that.
And speaking of that, fam, you got ahead of yourself there. Bernie Sanders is in danger of the same anti-Semitic smears as Jeremy Corbyn. And this is something that we have to pay attention to. So both Common Dreams and Electrona Antifida, which is a website I haven't heard of.
Let me put it up for you.
Yeah.
All right.
And basically they spoke about how don't let the smears that sank Corbyn tank Bernie Sanders. So Jeremy Corbyn obviously was smeared as an anti-Semite, and that did a lot of damage. Unfortunately, some people did believe these smears. The thing that Bernie has over Corbyn is that Bernie is a Jewish son of Holocaust survivors. You would think that would stop them. It won't. And
this is a very complex situation. I'm going to get into this. I did a lot of homework on this here.
So we must defeat, of course, this idea that Bernie Sanders is anti-Semitic. And David Serrata, he went back to like Savage Serrata because for a moment he was kind of a little bit more tame. And he recently did a few tweets where he's like, anybody who says Bernie Sanders is an anti-Semite is just ridiculous. He was going off. And I think that's what the campaign needs, to be honest. We need somebody that's a bulldog that's like, no, sorry. Like, you are not allowed to say that. It's coming out of nowhere. They have no proof. They are only using that. And Neera Tanden is going off on it. I mean, she's just milking it for all it's worth.
Oh, my God. And the establishment's they're milking this situation.
They are. And they really are. So we're going to talk more about the Labour Party, but this was Labour's worst performance since 1983. And a lot of people are saying this is something we could learn about, how to handle with the Bernie Sanders. Now, the issue of Brexit is something we don't have, right? But Bernie Sanders doesn't have to deal with Brexit. But the whole issue of anti-Semitism is what stuck. And people were going on and on and on about him being anti-Semitic simply for standing up to Palestinian rights. Same with Bernie. Even though he's not a supporter of BDS, he has been pretty much vocal about how AIPAC has too much power, how we need to stop, giving in to Israel's demands. And again, like the whole idea is that we can't let these people smear Bernie to the point where, these smears start sticking. And because people who don't pay attention to politics might hear the mainstream media and think, oh, yeah, like maybe this is true. Maybe this is true. And we have to constantly fight against that.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into the situation, because this is true. Because here's the thing: when it comes to the Brexit situation, we don't have this situation like that, but we have a lot of close parallel ties.
Right.
The whole thing, the reason why Jeremy Corbyn lost this election, the number one thing was because he didn't make a stance on Brexit. He was flip-floppy of it. He told his followers he'd be he would be a referee in the situation. We're going to talk about that. But it's very, very similar. It has a parallel to what's going on with the wall over there, where Bernie Sanders has taken a position. Screw you, Trump. You're not getting your friggin' wall. And I'm going to fight you tooth and nail for it.
Right.
Jeremy Corbyn was flip-floppy about Brexit. He was like, I don't know about it. I'm not going to take a stance on it. And it was an easy choice, because people like George Calloway would talk about it too, and they'd say, hey, you got to push for Brexit. You know why? Because whether it's good or bad, 52% of the people voted for it. It was a referendum.
Right.
You put it in the people's hand. You got to stand behind the people's hand. Jeremy Corbyn refused to do that. When it comes to the anti-Semitism, when it comes to these issues, there are pro-Palestinian people within his own cabinet that pushed him to make a stance on it. He didn't really go into it. He stayed neutral with the situation. He didn't go left or right. You know what I'm saying? And when I think about the parallels to what's going on in the States, Ilhan Omar came out and talked about it against AIPAC. At that moment in time, she became my favorite congresswoman. She made a stance against it. Bernie Sanders has made a stance too as well. We also said, like, he's one of the best when it comes to Israel. But you don't want to get caught in that no man's land. And I don't mind as a dangerous mind. You want to make a stance on it, whether it be this is an occupation, we need to end this open air prison, or hey, Israel has a right to exist. But it's going to come down to these hard decisions. And this is what I've learned from it. Bernie's got to be stern. He's got to make sure he makes a point on things and sticks with it. That's why the whole Cenk thing, the Maduro-Falia thing, it looks indecisive and it can hurt him in the long run.
I agree. And let's just compare, though, because I want to make sure to point out Bernie Sanders and Jeremy Corbyn are not in the same situation. Like what happened because the establishment is saying, oh, see, you guys, true leftists can't win. They're going to lose to Donald Trump. This is what they're using. I don't want to, the anti-Semitic thing, yes, we have to watch out for that. But what's happening here are two different things. Like Pasta said, there's Brexit, and there's also the fact that in the last YouGov poll, and this is from Nate's Liver on Twitter, Jeremy Corbyn had a net opinion rating of -40% and Brexit to deal with. In the last YouGov poll, Bernie Sanders had a net opinion rating of +11% and no Brexit to deal with. Bill Maher, of course, and the establishment are also saying these things are the same. And this is what they're going to use to say you can't elect a democratic socialist like Bernie Sanders.
Bullshit.
Because look at what happened to Jeremy Corbyn. And that's just not the case here. And I want to make sure we understand the nuances of that, because even though, yes, they are accusing both of them with the same smear, that's the establishment doing that. And they're trying to say they're the same, because they want people to think like this isn't going to happen, that you shouldn't vote for Bernie because look what's going to happen, blah, 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 blah. And that's just not the case. So,
yeah. And here's the thing, too. Let me just say this much, is that Jeremy Corbyn came off as an indecisive leader at times, and that is a big thing.
Right.
Bernie Sanders is very decisive. He comes off as a strong leader. And to tell you the truth, the Labor Party itself is very much like the Democratic Party over here.
They are.
It's split. It doesn't represent the workers within the party. That's why their demographics, they switched. And they went after the wrong base, and they went after the wrong things. And there were people like George Galloway going out there sounding the trumpet, saying, you guys are walking into a bear trap, and you're going to friggin' lose.
And so pretty much this leads on into the fact that the evidence points to election tampering in UK elections. So this is your part, Pasta, where you talk about the Labour Party in England that lost the elections to Jeremy Corbyn. Did you want to mention, or did you already mention George Galloway?
We're going to show the little George Galloway clip,
Perfect.
and we're going to look at a little piece of this article that I want to read, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. But this is George Galloway too as well.
Jeremy Corbyn was taken hostage by people who broke his arms, broke his legs, tied them behind his back, worked him from behind, and told him to say something radically different. And when I pointed that out to so many former friends of mine, they called it disloyalty. As a matter of fact, it was me that was being loyal. And you, who were seeking to camouflage that simple truth, to deny it, who were the ones who were being disloyal. I told you over and over again, I would give you my right arm. And I meant it for Corbyn to be the Prime Minister. But I didn't expect it to happen because Labour's betrayal of Brexit, Labour allowing itself to be boxed into a corner as the anti-Brexit party was going to lose them millions of votes in their traditional heartlands, and all to gain Putney and Canterbury. I mean, I know Shakespeare asked the question, for Wales? Well, Wales is a great deal more valuable than Putney and Canterbury. All of that was done for Labour gains in Putney and Canterbury. Just think about that.
So Truth Dig wrote this great article about what's going on. And once again, I read a bunch of articles last night, and I half agree with half of the articles, and I don't agree with the other half, but trying to understand what's going on. And it says, Britain's grim lesson for America. Now, I'm going to go down here because this is exactly what George Galloway said, and I want to just echo it. It was hugely damaging that Corbyn refused to take a clear position on Brexit, the overreaching political issue that dominated this election. To be fair, he didn't have great options, and his promise to act as a natural referee on Brexit reflected in an awkward split within his party's base. To oversimplify the equation slightly, traditional working-class Labour voters in the North England tended to support Brexit, while affluent, cosmopolitan Labours, or latte liberals in America, Labour voters in and around London overwhelmingly opposed it. Still, if the party's leader had taken a clear position and stuck with it, as in fact he did in 2017 campaign, the results might have been different. Now, if he had taken a no Brexit situation, I don't even know if he still would have won. For me, it's an easy decision. As much as you hate the bill, as much as you dislike it, if the people voted for it, sorry, I got you there, fam. As much as the people voted for it, you have to sit there and you have to support them. And what does it say right here to the Labour Party? It's almost identical to what's going on with the neoliberal party right here. The more traditional working class Labour voters in the North went away from Labour.
So the neoliberals in London do not want Brexit.
Exactly.
For what reason?
They look at it as more, and these are more like they look at it as an immigration issue. They look at it as an anti-immigration issue. These are like the latte liberals. These are the ones that said no to racism when he got, you know what I'm saying? These are, so they have more money. They're more cultured. They're talking about what kind of curry they're going to go get late night. You know, they have affluent. They have a few bucks. You know, they have a few bucks. So when you talk about the traditional working class people, just like the people, the Democratic people who they lost this election, is because the working class doesn't align with the Labour Party anymore. And a lot of Labour Party they were pandering and giving these affluent people within London what they wanted, and that was to go against Brexit, even though the people voted for it.
And granted that the Labour Party is far more progressive than our Democratic Party. I mean, just in general. But I want to point out something, Pasta, because this is something that I don't know if you've seen. There was a woman that's part of the Labour Party that was caught lying in a hot mic moment, and she is actually part of the Labour Party. And this is what Katie Johnstone, and I'm going to go over her article in a minute, but she goes on to talk about how he was betrayed by a lot of their own people, kind of like the Democrats going after Bernie Sanders.
Exactly.
You know, he was betrayed. And I guess let me quickly, since Johnny has it up, let me just kind of go over what she said. But she basically wrote that Jeremy Corbyn was targeted by billionaire-controlled media outlets along with intelligence and military agencies as well as state media's BBC. And this is kind of like a summary of what she wrote. If you guys want to read it, she's really great on this.
She's awesome on this stuff.
And she said, before you all get excited, no, it wasn't the Russians. It wasn't the Chinese, the Iranians, Cobra Command, or the Legion of Doom. I'm not going to get any Rachel Maddow-sized checks for revealing this evidence to you, nor am I going to draw in millions of credulous viewers with awaiting with bated breath for a bombshell revelation of the international conspiracy that will invalidate the results of this election. In fact, hardly anyone will even care. Hardly anyone will even care because this election interference has been happening right out in the open and was perfectly legal, and nobody will suffer any consequence for it. Nobody will suffer any consequences for interfering in the UK election because the ones doing the interfering were extremely powerful, and that's who the system is built to serve. And Raina Kalik, who's also great on foreign policy, she said, the centrist and mainstream media outlets are responsible for the right-wing win in the UK. They spent all their time bashing and smearing Jeremy Corbyn because they will always prioritize smashing the left, even if it means aligning with the right. Shameful. That is what's happening here. That you can say is the same exact thing.
British right.
Exactly.
The Tory is aligned with the neoliberal left, and they control the mainstream media.
And the Tories are the Republicans. And because they would rather have a Republican than have a progressive in power. And that's the same ideology that we have to, understand. And then she goes on to talk about the billionaires and the media and how all of these people work together. But what's most prevalent is what I want to show here that I don't think most people have seen. And it's basically how the media was caught this journalist who was part of the Labour Party laughing before she was on camera. So just watch it because it'll make more sense when you play the video, Johnny, because it's hilarious and sad.
Good evening, Jess. How are you feeling as these results unfold? Can you hear me, Jess, Philip? It's Christian. Guru Murphy here.
I can hear you, sorry.
Well, look, I mean, yeah, straight face. Actually, you don't have to have a straight face on this show. What are you thinking?
Are you talking to me now?
Yeah.
Sorry, that wasn't clear. Sorry, I'm really tired. What I'm thinking is, it's just totally devastating, isn't it? It's totally devastating that all the people that I see every day, they're going to have nowhere to turn. And I mean, I should say that thing where we all pretend that we're going to wait and see if the results are better than we thought, but it feels like a kick in the stomach.
Okay.
I can't.
So if you continue to watch it, you see how the shift, right? Initially, before she knew that she was out and live, she was laughing. She was having the time of her life. The moment he's like, oh, hello. And she's like, oh. And she puts on this sad face. So her name is Jess Phillips. And she appeared on, this is Channel 4, to talk about how devastated she was about the news of the exit polls, showing her party, because she's part of Labour, crushing defeat. But when the camera switched on before she was prepared, you caught her laughing. And then she chuckles, and then he's like, straight face. And then he's like, oh, no, you don't have to have a straight face here. So obviously, this is just more proof of how Jeremy Corbyn was betrayed, like Caesar, by members of his own party who literally are like neoliberals.
Yeah, well, they'll do the same thing to Bernie here, and a lot of people have kind of sound the alarms on it too as well. When it comes to that issue, that Labor is not aligned with the progressive movement at all. They're more like the neoliberals. They have their corporate donors as well, and that party is split in half. And that's why the northern part of England voted for the Tories, because they saw this party that no longer represents them. They're indecisive of what they're doing. And here's the other part I want to talk about too as well. If you go back to that Truth Dig article real quick, John, and if you go to the right below the Truth Dig article itself, I'm so sorry, right below where we were talking about the leaders of how it's split, how the affluent people, if you go into that article right below that it says Corbyn also appeared a little bit down, a little bit more, right there. Yeah. No, that's not it. There. Corbyn also appeared indecisive or somewhat worse than that when it came to Labour's burgeoning anti-Semitism scandal, in which some Jewish Labour MPs or candidates were targeted for abuse by pro-Palestinian leftists. As David Cogan puts it, there was no evidence that Corbyn himself harbored hateful views, but also no evidence that he cared about the problem at all that much or understood how badly it damaged the party's reputation. So the indecisiveness when it comes to that, had he put his foot down one way or the other. And I hope Bernie doesn't get caught in that dilemma, because a lot of people are sometimes scared to talk out against AIPAC. They're scared to talk out against Israel. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to win the pro-Zionist vote no matter what. Donald Trump has been the best pro-Zionist president. Right. He moved the friggin' embassy. So politically, emotionally, compassionately, ideology-wise, you should stand up against what they're doing.
Right.
You'll get a bunch of people coming your way. I haven't liked the way Ilhan Omar's talked lately, but because of that one friggin' tweet, I was like, oh, hell yeah. Somebody in our Congress is finally standing up against AIPAC, and that's what we need. And there's a lot of people in this country, especially progressives, who feel that way. No, fam?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
I mean, I don't think it's fair to say that you're an anti-Semite because you're criticizing AIPAC, Israel, and the genocide that they're doing against Palestinians.
Yeah.
But that's what they do to you.
They put you in that corner.
But again, Bernie Sanders has said, I believe Israel has the right to exist, but I don't condone what the human rights abuses that are happening, blah, 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 blah. And I think more of the Democratic candidates need to be saying things like that as well, because that is a huge
And
thing.
you even said there's more room for him to go even further,
Oh,
too,
absolutely.
right? Like, you would hope he'd be BDS one day, like, you know what I'm saying? So, you know what I'm saying? Like, I hope he doesn't get caught in that dilemma. I see a lot of politicians kind of getting caught in that dilemma. Remember Andrew Yang, Johnny? Pandering to friggin' Israel? Because he's caught in that dilemma again. He thinks on foreign policy. Anyways, we love Andrew Yang, but I love you. He's a nice guy. I don't want to speak for anybody. He's cool. I like him. I think he's genuine. I just don't believe in a lot of his policies.
Right.
But he felt, in a way, like he had to pander to Israel because it would hurt him.
Yeah.
And they would call him an anti-Semite if he didn't stand up that way.
Exactly.
So, let's take a look and see if there's anybody real quick on. We haven't done many shout-outs real quick. Is there any super chats we're missing, Johnny? We got 107 people watching. Come on, guys. We need more than that. We need more than that. Glory Jones, how you doing?
Hey, Glory.
Our elections actually suck. Broward County polling stations are chaos always. Yes.
I'm sure they are. Broward
Are you from
County.
Florida? She's from FLA?
She's from she's from Miami. I told you that last time.
I forgot. Broward County, isn't that Dade?
No, Broward County is north of Dade. Dade County is south of Broward. Right, Glory? Yes.
Do we have any super chats on the other channel? I don't see any. Thank you very much, guys, for all hanging in. Thanks for going over there. We got 84 Patreons, 85 Patreons now, I think. Thank you guys so much. That is so awesome. With your help and your love, we'll go out there and do the work, do the deeds.
The more we get your help, the more time we have to do everything that we need to do. So
yes,
we really appreciate it.
Yes, and Fiorella likes good grade A ahi, so help me out with the super chat so I can get the good ahi to make good poke bowls.
Pasta.
Well, I want to make you good poke bowls. Fam, what do we got next here? WikiLeaks.
So WikiLeaks released more evidence that the facts were misrepresented in the OPCW regarding Syrian chemical attacks in Duma. So Katie Johnstone, again, she's been kicking ass.
Yes.
And taking names.
These are her wheelhouse right
and
here.
She broke it down very, very easily, just with some highlights that I'm going to read because it's a lot of information if you just go through the WikiLeaks. So I'm going to just kind of go over some of the highlights she said. She said, today WikiLeaks releases more documents showing internal disagreement within OPCW about how facts were misrepresented in a redacted version of a report, which alleged the chemical attacks in Duma, Syria in April of 2018. And she said the aforementioned memo states that around 20 inspectors have expressed concerns over the final FFM report, which they did not feel reflected the views of the team members that deployed to Duma. A member of this team was suspended from his post and escorted from the OPCW building in a very undignified manner. And she quotes him, after more than 12 years, I believe, serving the OPCW with dedication and professionalism, Ian Henderson's personal and professional integrities have taken a knock in the most public fora, the internet.
Ian Henderson.
She said a falsehood issued by the OPCW that Ian did not take part in the Duma FFM team has been pivotal in discrediting him and his work. So she kind of talks about that. And then she says, the denial is partially untrue. Ian Henderson was part of the FFM, and there was an abundance of official documentation as well as other supporting proof that testifies to that. Henderson was a ballistics expert who said Duma scene didn't evidence an air attack, i.e. Assad. Yeah. And he said, we are not insisting on being right in our assertions, but we are demanding to be heard. However, we have been stonewalled throughout by obfuscation, exclusion, and even thuggish and bullying behavior. And she references this memo referenced by the Daily Mail article saying 20 different OPCW's inspectors have expressed concern about the way the report was developed in March 2018 after the OPCW's final report from Duma was published. Basically, they completely blocked his research.
Ian Henderson, a
They
real
completely excluded his research. And let's see. The FFM report was written almost exclusively by investigators who never actually went to Duma. The ones who did were excluded. So they basically took him out, excluded his report, and basically they acted like he didn't even work there.
Yeah.
And this is all in an effort to say that the chemical attacks were real, when more and more evidence, not just from WikiLeaks, but from even before, talks about how not only was there no evidence, but that it likely didn't happen.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, well, this is the third time something
Right.
like this has happened.
Yeah.
I went through this whole shenanigans with the first time when it came to the Turkish parliament and whatnot, and we figured out that it wasn't, Assad who did this. And Ian Henderson, I remember that name because when I was reading this stuff the other night, that's a real whistleblower. That's a real hero right here who's coming out and putting his life on the line. And we talked about all these groups, these OPCWs, these OASs, all these just friggin' lobbyist kind of groups for the military industrial complex, and that's where it all comes from, so we can justify and manufacture sense for the attacks. The whole thing about this whole situation, and the reason why I haven't been diving too much into it, is because no matter what happens, the United States is going to say, oh, we just got the wrong information.
Right.
That's why we did that. We'll look out better next time. It's already said. It's already done. If they can do this to Iraq, where they go, oh, we got the wrong information, and we still have people on the left rehabilitating the George Bush clan, the W. Bush clan, for everything he did, then none of this shit's going to matter whatsoever. Because on this attack, the response for this particular attack, the chemical attack, where Ian Henderson went, did experiments, saw that it was not dropped, that it was stuff placed on the ground, that it really didn't have a serious effect. Probably the white helmets were involved. We don't have those links, but they were probably involved because they seem to just show up out of the blue when it comes to these situations. But this whole situation right here was a reason why we were able to bomb the airstrip and do what we got to do. Now, a lot of people weren't killed during that bombing, fam. Remember, that was right around my birthday one year. But guess how much money it cost? That justifies the fucking defense bill that all these Democrats just endorsed and just signed up to do. Shit like this. It keeps the machine rolling. So when I see this, now the third attack, the third time, Assad's a brutal dictator. He gasses his own people. Well, here's the third time now disproving. I lose hope and I don't pay attention to it as much because
it's not saying that Assad hasn't done anything and then he's an innocent little lamb. But this isn't this. There's no evidence. And so to recap, Ian Henderson is an OPCW inspector who went to Duma, ran the experiments, and concluded that the cylinders alleged to have been dropped by Assad helicopters were rather manually placed, i.e. staged.
Yep.
An OPCW official actively had his report purged from the registry. So they are literally hiding
Sorry,
the
I got
truth.
ahead of us there.
The
but,
truth.
You know.
No, this
I was reading this stuff the other day, and I was like, oh, my Lord, again, here we go.
It's entirely true, fam.
All right. Well, that's the OPCW. That's Caitlin Johnson. Thank you very much, fam. Let's have some fun. It's fun time. You know what's fun? It's fun is when we tell people that
you've been exposed.
You've been exposed. There he is, Johnny. He's not Johnny did a lot of work on these things, and he made my face look pretty okay. So let's go through this. We'll go through the fun stuff first. So number one, fam, you know who got exposed?
Who?
My man over here.
Oh yeah.
His name is Mr. Richmond. He's a congressman. Guess what he was doing, fam? During the impeachment trial, he's watching golf on his thing.
Oh,
Check
that's
this
hilarious.
out. You got an impeachment trial. Adam Schiff is over there blurting out that this is one of the worst attacks on American democracy. And here you got my man. He's watching golf. Get it up there, Johnny.
Objection. The chair is authorized to declare recess at any time.
No, it's the one down below. There's one of them there. I'm sorry. Here it is. Johnny saw this the other day. We were laughing about this.
Mr. Nagoose?
You watch the
Mr.
get him on
Nagoose
there,
votes
Johnny.
no.
Get him.
Ms.
See him right over there?
No. Ms. McBath votes no. Mr. Stanton?
No.
Mr. Stanton votes no. Ms. Dean?
No.
Ms. Dean votes no.
He's watching
Mr.
golf.
Powell?
No.
Mr.
Cedric
Powell
Richmond.
votes no. Ms. Escobar?
No.
Ms. Escobar votes no. Mr. Collins?
It's a fun one,
Mr.
fam.
Collins votes aye. Mr. Sensenbrenner?
But Cedric.
You've been exposed.
That's right, Mr. Richmond. Cedric Richmond. You've been
hilarious.
exposed. Fam, how about the next one right here? Did you look at this one here? Hank Johnson, another congressman. This guy, and you want to talk about this? I don't know how friggin' low they'll get. These guys like Adam Schiff and now this one here. This guy actually wants you to believe that Donald Trump is almost got Zelensky's daughter tied up. He wants you to imagine that's the severity of this issue when it's not even close. Take a look at this one right now.
He looked weak. Well, I tell you, that brings to mind the picture of President Trump and President Zelensky meeting in New York in September at the UN. And a big chair for President Trump, little chair for President Zelensky, big 6'4" President Trump, 5'11" Mr. Zelensky, President Zelensky, and they're standing there, and President Trump is holding court, and he says, "Oh, by the way, no pressure." And you saw President Zelensky shaking his head as if his daughter was downstairs in the basement, duct taped. I mean, there's an imbalance of power in that relationship. It always has been. And there's no way that the nation of Ukraine can stand up to the power of the United States of America.
All right. Okay.
So because Trump is tall and Zelensky's shorter, that means that there was an imbalance of power?
I know, right? And the fact that he mentions
sorry.
this shit doesn't. I mean, this
That's
is some
hilarious.
serious propaganda. Did you hear the one congressman who was there laugh about that
Yeah.
stuff? Was like, where are you getting this shit from? I'm gonna only tell you this 27 times because that's what Adam Schiff does, and everybody starts following suit. They're following Adam Schiff and the establishment Democrats off a cliff when it comes to this impeachment. And I'm telling you,
so
it's
bad.
going to hurt whoever the Democratic nomination is down the road.
Absolutely.
So the next person, Hank Johnson, fan, tell him what he is.
Huh?
Tell him he's exposed.
Oh, he's been exposed, fam.
You've been exposed.
Who's that?
That's Will Smith.
Oh.
He's going to wipe your memory. Oh, shit, where are we at over there? Where we at? Oh, my God, I can't even see nothing. My eyes. Oh, what were we talking about? Adam Schiff.
Adam Schiff.
Yep.
For brains.
Yeah, Adam Schiff for brains. Schiff for brains, fam. You know what he did now?
What?
All right, he botched this whole thing. He insists the impeachment is not a failure despite a plunge in public support and interest. You're talking about this stuff fell off a cliff, fam. And not only that, he got his ass so spanked by Nunes. Nunes wrote this letter dismantling Schiff over the FISA lies, over stroking steel, over participating in a cover-up. And the IG report that came out did not it showed that the FBI, at the very least, was stupid, dumb, careless. Our intelligence agencies, where in that report, when they went to go get the FISA warrant, tappings to get into Carter Page, they forgot, fam, to tell the judge that Carter Page had worked for the FBI before as an informant. They left that out. Not only that, they brought in the Steele dossier because the first time they went to go get the warrant, they didn't get it. So they went back and they loaded it up, and they also said that friggin' the Steele dossier was real. They kind of presented it as a real thing, not that Hillary Clinton picked it up, not that the Democrats picked it up. So they used all this information, these nefarious acts, to obtain this warrant, okay? And now they've been completely exposed. Nunes wrote a letter just tearing apart Adam Schiff. And Adam Schiff, he screwed this up big time. Adam Schiff?
You've been exposed.
He likes to add that T there.
Who's that? Oh, my God, look at that. Who is that? That was scary over there. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Oh, by the way, too, the way I just put up that Giuliani article, remember I said the chickens is coming home to roost? Giuliani just came back from his trip in the Ukraine, fam. He's going to spill the beans on everything, and it doesn't make a difference what you think of him politically or ideology-wise. He went there. He's got testimony. He's going to open this shit up so big, and it's going to make the Democrats, people from Obama, Nancy Pelosi, all of them are going to look like a bunch of idiots, fam. Okay, fam, let's talk about this next person who's been exposed because guess what came out? And there's a lot more people than this guy.
He's my favorite.
Who?
George W. Bush.
What happened, fam?
W. Yeah, let me know.
Well, the Afghani papers have come out. I got a little video I put up and said at the end of the day, no one will bear the responsibility for what Bush and his carpetbagging goons did in Afghanistan. His rehabilitation from the neoliberals due to their hate for Trump is absolutely sickening in my mind, fam.
Yep.
Let's take a look. The Afghan papers came out. There's a little video that was on Take a look at this, fam.
Afghanistan, still happening. And guess what? We may have been misled about how well it's going. The Washington Post has published thousands of US government documents which may just prove what many of you suspected. Politicians and diplomats haven't a clue about what's happening in Afghanistan, but they won't admit it publicly. Operation Enduring Freedom, stop laughing at the back, was launched mainly to try and look busy after the 9/11 attacks. The White House's Afghan war czar, 3-star Army General Douglas Lute, summed it up pretty well when he said, to quote, "We didn't know what we were doing." How did no one notice what was going on? One advisor to the Marines quoted in the papers says that it's because they produced funky color-coded charts to show the politicians how well the war was going, and no one questioned the info. That is the power of the pie chart, kids. But it's too easy to be negative. Let's try and find some good in all of this, shall we? Well, Afghanistan is now a record holder. It is now America's longest ever war. That takes real stamina. It's been fantastic for local businessmen. Opium production has quadrupled since 2001. It's been great for the jobs market. Around $2 trillion has been plowed into the war industry. It's been great for the banks too. The New York Times says that interest payments on loans to pay for the whole debacle are going to be around $600 billion over the next 4 years. Oh yeah, and the Taliban, which was kicked out by NATO and the CIA back in 2001, it's pretty much back in control of the whole country. So it's been great for them. You see, there is always a bright side.
That's hilarious. And so Afghanistan is the new Vietnam, and we spend $4 billion a month in that war. $4 billion a month. And what's worse is a lot of these people that have fought in wars that started years ago, right? Or the new people, the new kids that were born, right? After 9/11 are now fighting in this war. That's insane.
Yeah.
And all of these people coming back from these wars, the majority of them have some sort of trauma, some PTSD, or a lot of veterans have ended up in the streets.
Yeah.
And we're spending $4 billion, yet we can't get Medicare for all. We can't take care of our people here. I mean, more people should be outraged about that. I don't understand how more people are not outraged about that. They just might not know that this is what's happening here. Again, history repeats itself.
Yeah. John, how old are you? 24. So you were 4 years old when we went into Afghanistan. 4 years old Johnny was when we went into Afghanistan. Let that sink in right now. And all these people who go, oh, I can't be bothered with foreign policy things. I have to worry what's going over here. $600 billion on the interest. Guess who's paying for that, fam?
We are.
Fam. It's coming out of our taxes. This is why we can't have nice things. When you look at that pie chart on how much is spent, half of it and then some goes right into the military-industrial complex. And they don't even know why the frig we were there. That's why I say, George Bush, you've been exposed. And let me tell you something else. Everybody else with them, Donald Trump, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, all of Congress who allowed this to go by because of pretty color charts, fam.
You've been exposed.
And you've been SpongeBob exposed, mother.
That's my favorite, SpongeBob.
Fam,
he's
we got
my
the next
favorite.
person being. And just to harp on this, just to finish up on this, really, we have to get involved.
Yeah.
We have to understand foreign policy. Nobody should sit in Congress if they don't understand what's going on foreign policy-wise. It is a sham. It is a disaster. We're going around causing death and destruction. And like you talked about, the soldiers coming home, killing themselves from PTSD. How long does it have to go on our imperialistic ways?
Fam.
Yes, fam.
So Bernie spanked Buttigieg, and
Woo!
not literally, but the campaign actually did something that a lot of us really liked and posted a video on Instagram directly calling out Pete Buttigieg's disingenuous smears and attacks on the progressive college tuition plans. So let's let that play.
I just think rich people ought to be able to pay their own tuition. I'm also concerned about a narrative emerging that ignores the fact that not everybody goes to college.
Buttigieg is wrong on both counts. Number one, of course, when we talk about making higher education, public colleges and universities tuition-free, we mean not only college, but we mean trade schools as well. There are millions of good jobs out there in construction and all kinds of areas where people are good at working with their hands. They don't want to go to college. And of course, we are going to make tuition free for those people. So what he's saying is not accurate.
I just don't believe it makes sense to ask working class families to subsidize even the children of billionaires. I just think that if you're in a position to pay full freight, then you should.
Second of all, there is the issue of universality. I'm very glad that Mr. Buttigieg is worried that I have been too easy on upper income people and the millionaires and billionaires, that I'm going to allow their kids to go to public colleges and universities. Just, by the way, as they do go to public schools right now. Trump's kids can go to any public school, elementary school, high school in the country, tuition free. But the point is, I happen to believe that when you talk about programs like Social Security, like health care, like higher education, they should be universal. The way you pay for them, and the way I do it, not the way Buttigieg does it, is I do demand that at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, that the very rich will start paying their fair share of taxes, as will corporate America. You pay for it by raising revenue from the very rich, but then you say in a very simple way that any person who wants a higher education, college, trade school should be able to do it. You know, right now, that's what we do with Social Security. It is a popular program. It is a universal program.
I'm glad he called him out by name, too. I love it when Bernie says, and I'm different from Buttigieg on that.
I love that he pointed out to the stupid argument, like, I don't want rich, because Buttigieg gets money from all these rich people. Like all of them. That's how, like, he doesn't care about the rich kids getting a free ride. He's like perpetuating these people to be rich. Yeah. But that's an excuse. That's an excuse they use because rich kids, they're going to private institutions. They're going to like certain, Ivy Leagues. They're not going to freaking public colleges. So that's number one, like that. Yeah. That's such an idiotic excuse. And Bernie brings it back to, I'm going to pay for this by making rich people pay. The same rich people that are giving Pete Buttigieg money in these wealthy private fundraisers that he likes to have.
Yeah, and you called him out on it. He couldn't answer that at the KDM convention. You guys go on, take a look at that. We have that in a folder. Fam just calls him right out on it, and he gives us the same platitude salad bullshit like he did to my question. What are you going to do foreign policy day one? Platitude salad. He is also a pander, and he also supports Israel's missile attacks on Gaza, but condemns Palestinians when they respond. So, I mean, Absolutely. If you speak out against this, you might be called an anti-Semite, but once again, this is the game we play. Are you going to pander to Israel, or are you going to call it out what it is? Because we want justice no matter what side it's on, okay?
Absolutely. And fam, for the last thing, going along with that.
Wait, can we give Pete Buttigieg, hey, after you got beat up by Tulsi, then you got beat up by Bernie, and now you've been exposed by the CONVO couch. PDB.
You've been exposed.
Here they are.
Patrick, Star, and SpongeBob both.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, that's the big one, 2 in 1. So who else, fam?
So Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is the topic because Bernie Sanders is a threat. And now these establishment pundits are starting to realize it. So the establishment media flat out said that if Bernie wins Iowa, they'll do anything to stop him. So let's play this video at about 11 minutes and 41 seconds.
Talk about that boom and bust cycle, but I have to just very quickly say, George, that I don't think there are many lessons from England unless you think of Corbyn as a serious leader. This was a failed leader who coddled the anti-Semites in his ranks and never took a clear, coherent position on Brexit. That's why he failed there. But there is this boom bust inside the Democratic Party over the course of the last many months. If you had told me that Mayor Pete would be in the contest still and Kamala Harris would be out, if you said that 6 months ago, I'd say that you were insane. There's a resilience that Bernie Sanders has demonstrated in 4 years ago that continues to accrue to his benefit now. That California number is powerful. He's up at 26% in California now. California votes early on March 3rd. If he finishes...
Votes even before that. I mean, the date is March 3rd.
They start the early voting. He's the only one with any serious momentum right now. And as Governor Christie has pointed out to me, the superdelegate erasure from the Democratic Party is only going to benefit Bernie Sanders in the end.
Listen,
serious momentum.
If you're Donald Trump, you're sitting and watching this and you just can't believe your good fortune. Again,
really can't.
your good fortune again.
You really can't believe it. I mean, the fact that Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren are the people who've had where the energy is. Joe Biden has seemed unable to perform at a level that's acceptable for him to take off with the rest of those voters that are reluctant about Warren and Sanders. And that Buttigieg just does not seem, in my view, to be able to be taken long-term seriously as a nominee for a whole bunch of reasons, including his lack of support in the minority community. I think, he's looking at the very real possibility that he could be running against a Warren or a Sanders, which he would relish.
But Rich Lowry, if Bernie Sanders has persisted, and he has, and has stayed pretty steady even after a heart attack, so is Joe Biden at the top of the poll. He's been remarkably stable, it turns out.
His performance has never risen above fair or middling at best, and still he showed remarkable persistence. But look, this thing is wide open. Biden easily could win Iowa. Wins Iowa, is probably the nominee, and it's much less dramatic than we thought. But as Nate Silver alluded to, Bernie Sanders easily could win Iowa and New Hampshire, and then you're looking at a desperate stop Bernie Sanders campaign. So I would say two things the last couple of weeks have been the big story in the Democratic race. One, the uptick of Bernie Sanders. The other is Amy Klobuchar beginning to show a little momentum in Iowa. So I think any of five.
Okay, so there's a couple things I agree with him on. The fact that Bernie Sanders is rising and he's the only one that has a momentum. Yeah, I'm surprised that they even let that guy say that on air. But that is true. I mean, this is a point that they can't deny. But what Chris Christie there, because this is George Stephanopoulos, Chris Christie there, what Chris Christie said is entirely wrong. Donald Trump isn't wanting to run against Bernie Sanders. Are you kidding me?
He wants to run against Warren.
Donald Trump would rather run against Biden or Warren.
Yeah.
He if he runs against Bernie Sanders, all polls show that Bernie Sanders will beat him by great amounts. All the polls that show Joe Biden would win are completely biased because they're calling all these landlines. They're calling older people that would vote for Joe Biden. They're not looking at the independents. They're not looking at the people that if you nominate Bernie, they might vote for Bernie. But if you nominate Biden, are you kidding me? They're going to go vote for Trump or they're not going to vote at all. And so, no, Chris Christie, you're wrong. Donald Trump does not want to run against Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
But also what they mention at the end, you see there, is that if Bernie Sanders wins Iowa, they're really going to do everything they can to make sure he loses. And that is something important to note because now they're discussing it openly. Yeah. They're not even like pretending anymore. There literally is proof that there is this Stop Sanders movement. And now these pundits are over there talking about how they're going to stop Bernie Sanders. And that to me is very, very telling of how we need to act as people. We need, as media, as independent media, to stop these smears, these continuations of, again, and the anti-Semitism, the fact that, Bernie Sanders isn't a viable option because he's this crazy Democratic socialist, because Jeremy Corbyn lost, that means Bernie will lose because leftists don't have a movement, blah, 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 blah. We have to really continue to focus on that because that is very real. And they're even talking about it.
And I think, too, really, to tell you the truth, is our job here as independent journalists is not just to commentate and pick a side or, say what we want to say. It's to highlight the differences. And there are very stark, serious differences between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. And right now, after the show, I've even got a little bit more juice to make sure that we go out and point out the differences because, once again, here they go. They start lumping stuff. They start
Bernie and Elizabeth Warren.
Bernie and Elizabeth. They're not even closely aligned. Once again, Bernie has been a working class president for a long, long time. People in labor still align themselves with Bernie Sanders. People in Britain, when it came to labor, started walking away from the Labor Party because they didn't represent that. So when they're voting for a president, they're going to vote for Bernie Sanders because he represents their interests and their needs. He wouldn't cross the picket line right now with this next debate, right? He did it first. Everybody followed suit. Right. So we're going to point out the big differences, whatnot. And enough is enough with these people just saying something to make it stick. Just like the guy said, the anti-Semitism thing again. So they just throw this shit out there without any proof, without any evidence, and they just put it out there. Then they did the whole Warren friggin' Bernie thing. No. From now on, you guys have been exposed, and we're going to point out your differences.
You've been exposed.
Fam, I got a couple super chats, but
yeah. I just real quick want to say Warren's team was actually put that standing against the Democratic debates first for miraculously they saw it. But what is pertinent to point out is that Bernie Sanders has been marching with the people in the picket lines since
forever.
And I put out this video on Twitter a while ago of how, you know, he was arrested and all the times he has marched with the people, marched with unions. He came here and marched with the UCLA union during that time. He's Disney. I mean, I could go on and on. Every Amazon, like
his pictures are on the wall of those unions where the leaders went and endorsed Hillary Clinton last time because they said they were told to endorse, and a lot of the people within those unions did not like that move when they pulled those moves. Bernie Sanders' picture is on that wall. When it comes to labor in the United States, it's Bernie Sanders. We did a video at the Bernie rally. When he was a movie maker, he made a movie about unions and labor and how they works together. I mean, this guy's in it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to let them sit there and lump people together. Sure as hell not lump Elizabeth Warren to Bernie Sanders. Elizabeth Warren is not even close to Bernie Sanders, and I'm sick and tired of the mainstream media out there friggin' trying to harping that sentiment.
Commentating is so off. It's so off.
Marcus Will, thank you for the super chat contribution. As it is always appreciated on the couch. Bernie isn't concerned one iota about looking weak. Yeah, I agree with you there, man. He's a strong leader. He says what's on his mind. I wrote the damn bill. You don't see moments like that from Jeremy Corbyn. You might, but not enough in that whole British in-your-face kind of mentality. He had to get in there and get deep. He looked indecisive at times. I thought so, and he came back to haunt him. But I don't think Bernie's worried about that, but I do want to take the lessons learned, fam, and make sure that Bernie doesn't get stuck in that same corner. Super Chat, you just have something to say before the...
Just to wrap that up, though, I just feel like if anything could be taken from the Jeremy Corbyn's loss and Labor's loss, is that if you don't push hard on progressive values, on the working class movement, if you don't put your all into that, supporting what the people want, that's when you lose. It's when you're unsure, when you do the Elizabeth Warren dance, when you're like going all over the place, which way Warren, that's when you lose. That's what that election tells me, because you can't let those people win. You can't let the smears. And when your party is infiltrated, of course, by the establishment, you need to make sure to separate yourself from that establishment and make sure to tell the people you have their back. Bernie Sanders has the opportunity to do that, and Jeremy Corbyn fell short in that regard. And of course, it was not all his fault. I mean, he was completely surrounded by a bunch of leeches and snakes, and, you know, had Brexit and had all these other issues. But in the mainstream media, of course, the same thing. But that's where we can learn from that and see, hey, you can't go back and push the centrist ideals. You have to continue pushing what the people want.
Yeah, and Rocky Bellinger put on to Carl Snyder on the chat, if Tulsi went hardcore anti-Israel, the corporate media would say this is why David Duke and other white nationalists like her.
Absolutely.
Agreed. But that's why we have independent media and whatnot. And, you know, with Bernie Sanders, it's kind of this whole walking of a tightrope of, like, you know, kind of towing the line of what to say with the establishment, what not to say. You know, me personally, if I ever had the chance to ask Bernie Sanders questions, I would ask him about Julian Assange. I would ask him about election integrity. I'd ask him about Venezuela and stuff like that. But when it comes to the mainstream media, if he doesn't go a certain way, they can twist and turn it and put it against him. We see that. So it's going to be interesting to see the tight walking that Bernie Sanders does, as opposed to Tulsi Gabbard, who sometimes is like, hey, most of the time she's like, in your face, I don't care. You're not going to put me in your box. You're not going to make a puppet out of me, and I'm going to stand this way, and this is the way I feel.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the Super Chat contribution, Jim Crittenden. He says, thanks for interviewing progressive candidates. And yeah, guess what? January is going to be candidate month for us. We've sent out the emails. We're still reaching out there. We've got a lot of candidates we're going to be interviewing. We're going to stick to Tuesdays and Thursdays on the couch. We're going to try to do 2 interviews a day. So we're going to work extra time. So we need a few bucks to help us out. So if you can do so, because we are going to interview a lot of candidates. There was another Super Chat contribution. Did I miss it? I saw one. Just the last one. That's it. We got Gloria Jones. Thank you so much. All right, fam. Do we have anything else before we get out of here? Didn't you have something else? Or are we good?
No, I think that's it, fam.
That was it on the end of the list. So,
Johnny, got
anything to close with, or we're good? We got to get going over here, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, we have a Rockfin, ROKFIN. Sign up for that Rock Fund. It is a cryptocurrency-based platform. It's looking to the future where YouTube and Facebook and Google, they're all suppressing us. Rockfin is kind of opening up the door and allowing their creators to make a few bucks and share the platform with them. So it is about information, freedom of speech, and we are praising them for that. Also, we have a Patreon. Thank you so much for our Patreons. It's always appreciated on the couch. If you can go over to our Patreon, help us out. Give $1, give $2, give 27. Whatever you can do, it's going to help. We have a busy political season, and we need to get out there and get the information for you out there so you're not lied to by the corporate media. Thank you so much, everybody, for Pasta Jardula.
Fiorella.
Johnny and Sue is still spinning on those 1s and 2s.
CONVO out.
Bye, everybody.
Been exposed.
Johnny, can you get your piece?